Good morning, I'm New CENTER Maine's Don Carrigan here with this week's edition of Political Brew. Joining us this week, outgoing state senator and Republican Lisa Keim, longtime Democratic analyst Ken Altshuler. Thank you both for being with us today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Again.
I know, it's a pleasure.
We're noting a somber date this weekend, the commemoration of the terrible mass shooting in Lewiston just a year ago. So many things to talk about if we want in relation to that. But for this discussion, how has state government responded? Lisa, you've been there for the past year. How well has state government responded, and government at all levels, to the Lewiston shooting?
Well, there's been an increase in funding towards mental health and putting some local resources specifically there as well. We need so much more. You know, government needs to do so much more in trying to make sure there's resources there for mental health treatment for people. And yeah, it is such a tragedy. And the people that lost their lives, you know, sometimes we get down to the nuts and bolts of what to do without taking a moment to really recognize the incredible loss. And those people that lost their lives, the families are living with those repercussions, and they were just such builders of their community. So incredible loss there. But yes, we need more mental health resources. The Lewiston Commission found that the yellow flag law, which I was a prime co-sponsor of, absolutely could have changed the course of history that day if it had been used. So that law has been changed.
And you took a step to tighten it,
yes,
make it easier to use.
Yes, we did. Yep.
But then there was also passage of a 3-day waiting period to purchase a gun, and an expansion of the background checks.
That's true, and none of those would have changed. I mean, absolutely, the yellow flag process, as it was currently law, could have impacted and would have changed the outcome had it been used. Yep. 3-day waiting period, background check, none of that would have mattered. Those are superfluous discussions and really piggybacked onto a tragedy, which I found just kind of political maneuvering, unfortunately. But the yellow flag process was changed somewhat, so now law enforcement can use hearsay and take someone into protective custody based on what someone else says if they feel like that rises to the level of probable cause. But they still have to go to get a mental health evaluation. They still have to have a judge sign off on this. So due process is maintained still, and it's one-of-a-kind law in the country, and it's been used over 500 times. It's very effective.
Ken?
The other things are superfluous in Maine, but it would have made a difference in other shootings. So we got to remember it's not just here, but certainly the tragic loss of 18 people and the people who got injured. The only good thing is how the state and the community have come together. I agree with you that some good things came of it. The yellow flag law could have been used, should have been used, and there's a dismal failure that it wasn't. And let's also lay blame, if we have to do it, on the feet of the military, who identified mental illness and did nothing but cover it up. And this is a tragedy that didn't have to happen. No law, all you have to do is recognize and treat the clear mental illness Mr. Card was experiencing. That's all you have to do. So it's a tragedy that shouldn't have happened. And I think some of the laws that have changed are great. I think we need a red flag law. I applaud the yellow flag law. Not enough. Okay, look, I'm a liberal. I want police to be able to come in and take guns temporarily with a check if they think there's any potential danger. I'm willing to sacrifice my right for the safety of the community.
But you're sacrificing everyone else's right, and if someone uses that law against another person maliciously, say a woman that's in danger for a domestic violence situation, you've removed her ability to protect herself and her children based on hearsay without any evidence.
It's got to be a legitimate reason to go do it. You don't just, I mean, you got to trust police officers, and for the most part, you can. They're there to protect us, not there to exert
Well, this
authority.
process is absolutely what they're doing to make sure that it's legitimate. And this process could have been used to stop.
But the delay in having a mental health person chime in, that is the flaw.
But at the point, they're already in protective custody. So there's protections right there.
And it appears that there's going to be a petition drive about red flag as well. We need to move on to a couple other topics here if we can. There's a news report a couple weeks ago from the Maine Wire that its investigation showed, I think, five illegal immigrants had voted in several previous Maine elections. The Republicans in the legislature want that investigated by the Attorney General, now the governor. Ken, let's start with you. Should it be investigated?
Classic playbook from the Republicans, and it's 6, by the way. And shame on Steve Robinson, who I like, good friend of mine,
He's
smart guy.
He's the editor of the Maine Wire.
But he says, I have evidence. Shanabello says, well, please let us see it. He says, oh, no, if we found it, you can find it. Well, no, they can't get the information from DHHS. He allegedly got it from some whistleblower who's protected, so why aren't you disclosing it? Show the evidence. You have to disclose who the whistleblower is. So, no, this is the Republican playbook to erode confidence in our election process. And
so you don't trust the information? You think it's false?
Let me see it. Until I see it, I'm a lawyer. Well, I believe you're innocent until proven guilty. Let me see it.
Maine Wire has already shown this information to several mainstream news media outlets, and they have not refuted what he said. So, and absolutely, this whistleblower should be protected, because if the documents that the Maine Wire has are shown broadly, people will know who had access to those records. And so the whistleblower will be outed. No news media outlet is going to blow the cover on their whistleblower.
Lisa, this has been investigated throughout the 50 states over and over again. The fraud in voters is minuscule, and it is a solution without a problem.
So then investigate it. This is not something difficult. These records are online records, and you can do a query.
She can't access DHHS
Yeah, but AG
records.
can. She can simply ask the AG. We have a very serious allegation. She said that she's committed to investigating voter fraud, and yet refuses to do it.
The records were given up by a whistleblower.
The AG has access.
No, the AG cannot go get DHHS records. It's federal protection.
No,
absolutely.
They can for fraud investigation. They absolutely can.
I disagree with you. I don't think they can.
We give them over to them every time we have anything for child protective. They have all access to DHHS records.
You guys both had your coffee this morning. And so we've got a whole lot more to talk about, but we've used up our time for this segment. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with Section 2 of Political Brew. Welcome back to this week's Political Brew. I'm News Center Maine's Don Kerrigan, joined by Democratic analyst Ken Altshuler, Republican analyst Lisa Keim. You can't go about 10 seconds and not hear or see something about the presidential race. It seems to be very tight, razor-thin margins between Harris and Trump. Ken, I'll start with you. Just very simply, right now, who do you think is poised to win?
If the polls are right, Donald Trump. The polls are wrong, Kamala Harris. I think this will be the closest election. I think it's going to be closer than Gore v. Bush. I really do. I think it's going to be razor thin. I think if the polls about the black men supporting Donald Trump is overblown, that helps Kamala Harris. If Kamala Harris does not get the white suburban women vote, Donald Trump wins. I think we're not going to know. I think it's hard to predict, Don, because I think the people who are going to turn this election are the people who say, you know, I'd maybe vote for Kamala, but I don't know her well enough. Or I like Donald Trump's policies, but how can I deal with his character? Those people don't make up their mind until they're in front of that ballot. And so that's why you can't predict it in advance, because they really haven't decided yet.
Lisa, what do you think?
I think it's going to Trump. I agree. Razor thin. Polls are showing him pulling, moving ahead, and trends matter, right? Polls are showing an increase for him, a decrease for Kamala, and his campaign is going really well. I loved the McDonald's stunt. I think a lot of other people did too. And Kamala's campaign is not doing well, mostly because they don't keep her under wraps enough. People listen to her. It's word salad. She's flip-flopped on so many issues and things that really matter to people, like border protection. That she can't really explain why. She doesn't answer questions coherently, and doesn't seem to have answers for the reasons why she's flip-flopping. And people are going to vote protection for their families, protection for their pocketbooks. I think they're going to vote for Trump in the end.
I think they may vote change. And Kamala Harris, to young people and to women, particularly with the abortion issue, I think they'll like Kamala. I think people are underestimating Kamala Harris, and I think you know what you got with Donald Trump. He's not going to move a whole lot beyond what he's had back in 2016.
Which was great. I mean, the way my family was so much better off under Trump, and I believe that
the economy's
with Kamala,
booming. Things are going great.
things are going great right now.
Right. Absolutely.
Oh, I don't know what world you live in. They are not going great.
I live in Maine, greatest state in the country.
I agree with you there. No, Kamala is going to be more of the same with the Biden policies that have they've broken.
She can't distance herself too much from him because you don't do that. But I like Kamala. I like Kamala when she ran against Biden in 2020.
She didn't win barely any of the Democrat votes. So you're an
we used to not
outlier
even
there.
have primaries.
So there's an issue that's been floating along for the last couple of weeks in the presidential race, this allegation by conservatives that in the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris, that they cut out a lot of verbiage in her answer to a question about Israel, allegedly to make her look good. They're demanding that CBS News release the full transcript of the interview, not just that section, I believe. Is that something that should happen, Ken?
You know, we have gone over our time on Political Brew, and it's been edited. Editing by cutting off ends of it to make it shorter to ask more questions is not unusual. That's good editing. Right. They're not manipulating what she's saying. They're not putting different words and sentences together. It's typical and common. And Donald Trump won't even go on 60 Minutes. So I have no issue with it.
If people have questions, I think they should just release the transcript. Why hide anything? Just release it. Just have the journalistic integrity to just say, here's the full transcript. They can still edit, do whatever they want when they put it out. They won't do it. With CBS, 80% of their coverage of Kamala has been positive. Over 80% of their coverage on Trump has been negative. Basically, I think Kamala should have to list them as her top campaign donor because they give so much biased coverage to her.
Have you seen Fox News lately?
It's not even realistic.
Fox News didn't even mention Kamala Harris.
Well, she did an interview with them, which I thought was
good,
good for her.
Great.
She didn't do great.
Oh, she did terrific.
It was good of her to go there.
It's eye of the beholder.
Absolutely. We'll see who turns out to vote.
Exactly.
And speaking of all that, bringing it back to Maine, a study released this week by Colby College suggested that as many as a third of Maine voters say they're not confident that the votes will be accurately counted after this election. I am kind of flabbergasted by that many people in our state would be worried, whereas this wasn't even a concern 6 years ago. Lisa, what's your take on that?
I think both sides are to blame for this. And if we look back at what happened when Hillary Clinton lost, she blamed Russian collusion, absolutely unaccepting of her loss. Trump unaccepting of his loss as well. And yet we found out Hillary Clinton, of course, was the one that perpetrated the whole Russian collusion. These things trickle down to people, and even in fact what you just said in our last segment about this is Trump's playbook, or this is the Republican playbook to diminish our belief in our elections. I actually take insult in that because I absolutely never try to diminish people's belief in our system. Right. I encourage people to vote.
But this is talking about the actual counting of the votes. They question whether it's going to be done legitimately. And in Maine, people, a lot in towns like mine, they know who counts the votes.
It started with Donald Trump's challenge in Georgia. Donald Trump has never, Hillary Clinton conceded in 9 days. Donald Trump is still not conceded. Okay, this is a Republican playbook. I'm sorry, it's fear, and from the Republicans' perspective, the only way we can lose, not all Republicans, Donald Trump, the only way I can lose is if it's a fraudulent election. I mean, Al Gore conceded. Okay, Democrats have conceded.
Stacey Abrams did the same thing in Georgia in 2018,
and she conceded
and said, there was fraud. So I think,
and I concede the election.
There's definitely more than Republicans doing this, and I would say it's both sides that have done it, and pretty egregiously. I personally believe in the integrity of Maine elections. I understand we have a question right now of some fraud. I believe that should be investigated and laid to rest. But like you, I go to my local town office. I know my ballot clerk. I will go in early and vote. I will hand her my ballot. I have every belief that she's going to do what's appropriate with my ballot. I trust our system in Maine. I understand there can be some symptoms or some instances of fraud, as with any system, but 80% of Mainers want voter ID. 80% of Americans want voter ID.
It won't stop allegations of fraud.
No, but it would absolutely secure elections.
I have no issue with voter ID, except a lot of people actually don't have IDs. Hard to believe.
Yeah.
But
all right, winners and losers this week. Ken, you first.
Well, I think the winners are the town of Lewiston, who suffered an incredible tragedy and came together as a community, as the state of Maine did. And with all the flaws and all the blame and finger pointing, you have loving, forgiving people who have come together in this horrible time, a tragedy. The losers, I have to say, is American democracy, because of the erosion of the belief of we are the greatest country in the world. We have the greatest democracy in the world, and the foundation, the bedrock, is the election process. You can't erode confidence in that, or you're losing your democracy. And so shame to all those people, be Republican or Democrat, who do it. Shame on you, because you are destroying our democracy. That is the enemy within.
Lisa.
So the losers are kind of agree with you. I'm specific to Maine voters. I think the AG and the Secretary of State should undertake an investigation of this fraud and lay it to rest and say, here's what we found, make people more confident. And the winners in Maine, since are people of Maine as well, just for the amazing weather we've had this last weekend. I enjoyed some hiking, and the weather was a gift. So we were winners.
Let's have more of it.
Yes.
Thank you both very much for being with us this week. Thank you for joining us. New CENTER Maine continues after this.